Good morning. Our group for our final project, we were very passionate about nature and national parks in general, so we created the Trek Tracker app for our final project. We're going to move into introductions next, please. So we're going to starting with Michael. Please introduce yourself.
Hello, my name is Michael Meyer. I'm a U.S. Army vet and part of the Trek Tracker team.
Matt Hemsworth. I'm a U.S. Air Force veteran and located in Omaha, Nebraska.
I'm Ricardo De La Rosa. I'm a U.S. Army veteran. I'm located in Houston, Texas.
Raymond Frederick, Marine Corps veteran, located or based out of Wilmington, North Carolina.
Hello, I am Katia Burgos Rodriguez. I am a military spouse, and my spouse is affiliated with the U.S. Army, and I am in San Antonio, Texas.
So our motivation for this project was really three big things: was promoting discovery of national parks, the educational value, educating the youth, educating people, and creating lasting memories for friends and family. Some of the features that we included were providing different national parks within the United States, some helpful weather alerts that could give you some information and make your trip more enjoyable, and then also some activities that you were looking to do. Something that we would like to implement in the future, or some thought that we had for the motivation, was having some sort of way to share and plan with your friends. But that's something that we would like to implement at a future time. And now Katya is going to go through a demo through the project for us.
Okay, thank you, Raymond. So I am going to walk you through a demo of Trek Tracker. I am someone that really enjoys visiting national parks, and I recently heard about a web app called Trek Tracker that lets me document my visits and also discover new parks to visit in the future. So I am going to go ahead and register to see what the service is all about. So I clicked on register, and I'm going to enter my credentials, starting with username, password, first name and last name, and my email. Okay, and we hit submit. I realized that I have a typo in my email address, but hopefully we can fix that after logging in. So now I have to sign into the account that I just created. So entering my credentials again and submit. Okay, so we're now on the landing page, and immediately upon entering, I noticed that there's an image of a park that I haven't visited yet, the Grand Canyon National Park. And I make note of that because it sounds interesting and very beautiful. I have heard a lot about the Grand Canyon, so I definitely want to check that out. So based on what I'm seeing, it sounds like I can document my visits going to the tracker, or I can explore parks if I go into the button on the right side. But for now, I am going to go ahead and click on the tracker because I have some park visits that I want to document. And upon entering, I noticed that the tracker is empty, but that makes sense because I'm a new user. So let's go into add park visit. And so here, about a month ago, or a little over a month ago, I visited Canyonlands. And so I'm going to search for it. I'm about to enter the date that I visited. And again, this was a little over a month ago, so going into May. And over there, I did camping. So I choose camping in my activities, and I also did climbing. And in terms of my experience, it was pretty fun, but honestly, I'm not sure that I would go again. So I'm going to make a note of that so I can remember in the future. Okay, and there is one more park visit that I want to document. So I'm going to hit submit and add new visit. Okay, I see that it was successfully added. So last summer, I went to Big Bend. So let's look for Big Bend. Again, this was last summer, so let me go all the way back to July 2023. Pick my date. And here I did a self-guided tour walking, and I also did kayaking. So noting that in my activities. Now that one was gorgeous, so I do want to make a note of that. And I also want to make a note that I want to take my parents there next time. So I will add that into the description. This time I'm done, so let me press submit. I see that I'm taken back into my tracker. I notice that my 2 visits are logged. I see the date, the description. And I remember that I had that typo in my email, so let me go into account and fix that. So click on the pencil, remove the typo, and I save. Okay, and now I want to go back and find out more information about the Grand Canyon that I saw at the beginning. So let's go to the Explore page and find out more. So I go into Explore and let's enter Grand Canyon. Great, it's automatically giving me that suggestion. I click search. And upon entering the page for the Grand Canyon, I see that it's giving me an overview. That's great. Location, operating hours. And I also noticed that it's giving me some alerts, and all of this information is super useful during my planning stage so that I know what to expect before I go to visit the park. And as I keep scrolling down, I notice that it's even giving me some information about the weather to expect over the next couple of weeks for my reference. And this is all fantastic. And you know what? Let me go ahead and add that to my tracker so that I don't forget. So let's go back, add perk visit. I look for the Grand Canyon. And I recall that I have some time off in September. So let me go ahead and forward on time and add my time off in September. So I challenge myself to do something different. And in terms of activities, stargazing sounds interesting. Let me select that. And how about we also do some hiking? Let's do hiking there. And it's going to be a future visit, so looking forward to it. And with that, I submitted it. Great, and I see everything looked there, even my future visit, so I can remember that this is something that I want to do. With that, I'm done with Trek Tracker for the day, so I'm going to sign out and go on with my day. And with that, that is the completion of the demo, so next slide.
Okay, so here we have the different tools and technologies we used for the project. For the front end, we use HTML, JavaScript, and CSS with React. We also used Material UI and Bootstrap to help with the styling. For the back end, we use Django, Postgres for the database, Docker for containerization, and Amazon Web Services to actually host everything. We used a couple third-party APIs, which you just saw in the demo, specifically the National Parks API. That was where we got the alerts, park descriptions, pictures. And then we also used the National Weather Services API, which pulled the weather for each park. And then for resources, we used ChatGPT. So we use Quick DBD to create our database schema. The schema centers around the visit table, which has a relationship with the park activity and user table. So the park table, as you can see, park and activity table both have just the park name and the park code. And then the user table just has basic information used to create a user account. We used Excalidraw to create a rough website layout. And so we split the website up into 2 sides. The right side, which is where you search for national parks and get information, is the side we used for, we use the third-party APIs for. And then the left side is where we actually use our in-house API to create visits.
So we encountered a couple of challenges as we were developing this app. Posting and retrieving nested objects in Django REST framework, as well as deploying to AWS. For the first one, when we were working on adding the add park visit feature, we encountered a problem with adding the visit to our database. The main issue was that we wanted to add a list of activities, but our backend wasn't set up for it. We made a couple changes to the backend models, including changing to a many-to-many relationship between visits and activities, but that still wasn't functional. The issue turned out to be two different things. First, we designed our backend to inject some data at the start by fixtures in Django. As it turned out, our activity fixture didn't contain all possible activities for each national park. Fixing this was fairly simple. We just updated the fixtures. The second issue had to do with adding visits to the database that were associated with activities that were supposed to be unique. This caused a problem with adding the visits, so making the model attributes not unique solved that problem. The AWS issue that we ran into when we were deploying had to do with the structure of our backend. When we designed our endpoints, we didn't include a little snippet / API. This created an issue with our web server, Nginx, because it was expecting our endpoints to start with that / API. Took us a while to find this, a lot of looking at code for hours. But once we did, the solution was fairly simple. We just adjusted the endpoints in the back end and fixed the URLs on the front end, and things have worked perfectly since then.
So for our next steps, we'll be implementing an edit park visit page. This feature will allow users to update their entries and make changes to the details of their park visits. Whether they want to correct a mistake or provide additional information, this functionality will offer the flexibility they need. Next, to increase the discoverability of new parks, we'll be adding a random webcam or live stream to our homepage. This will provide visitors with a real-time glimpse into various national parks, sparking curiosity and encouraging them to explore new parks they might not have considered before. We also plan to provide detailed information on activities and events happening in each park, from guided tours to hiking trails and wildlife spotting opportunities. Users will have access to a wealth of information to help them make the most of their visits. Integration with social media is another key feature we will be adding. This will allow users to easily share their park visits and experiences directly from our website, fostering a sense of community and encouraging more people to engage with our content. Additionally, we will be adding a trip planning tool. This feature will help users plan their visits by suggesting routes, highlighting must-see attractions, and offering valuable travel tips. By making trip planning easier and more efficient, we aim to enhance the overall experience for our users.
Yep, and that's the conclusion of our presentation. Does anyone have any questions?
We've got a question in the chat. What was your favorite part of working on Trek Tracker?
Go ahead, Mike.
I was going to say, myself and a couple others, we've been to a few national parks, so it's definitely an interest of ours. So it's pretty fun working with that National Parks API. It has a lot of information, a lot of stuff we actually weren't able to implement. Just it's too much information almost. But just getting to know what each national park has to offer, I guess, which we just kind of discovered throughout the project. But
yeah, I would definitely agree with what Michael said. I also really I just enjoy working on the front end, designing things.
Oh, I was just going to +1 both of them. I thought it was really interesting how, we're building this web app with the intention of exposing users to more national parks. And it's funny because through the experience of building the web app, I was also discovering some new parks and just getting to know like, oh, I didn't even know that this park was located in this state, or that this state had this many national parks. So that was kind of like a fun, non-technical specific aspect of the project. But then also plus one to what Matt said with the front end and just thinking about how to structure everything and present all of this information to users. That was challenging, but also really fun to work with.
Another question, can you say again how you used ChatGPT in your project?
So we, oh, go ahead, Michael.
I was going to say it's ChatGPT is obviously a very powerful tool, and you know, when we get stuck on something, you know, after we exhausted all other resources, then we would kind of just post a question saying like, hey, this is what our current setup is, and this is the error we're getting. Can you make any suggestions on what is causing it? So that's really the extent we use it for. We would check the documentation first, and then, you know, do our own troubleshooting. But yeah, as a last resort, ChatGPT was always there for us.
With most of you or all of you in the group being, you know, interested and passionate about the project, did you find it easier to find common ground and what you wanted to prioritize and what you thought was important, or was it harder because you may or may not have all been very opinionated on, you know, the tool?
So I posed the idea to the group, I believe day one, and the idea came from I'm not sure if anyone's familiar, but if you go to a national park, you can buy a little passport and get a stamp at each national park. So I kind of just thought like, oh, that'd be cool to create a web version for that. And I think as soon as I posted, everyone was on board right away, and that obviously really helped spark like conversation on what features we wanted and how to go about it. So we were all pretty involved in that process, I would say.
Yeah, and also it was, so we all had different ideas of, after looking through the API, we were like, oh, this would be really interesting to build something around this particular endpoint or data that we can get from the API. And we all had ideas on how to bring those. And at the same time, we were all kind of on the same page in terms of our limitations when it comes to time and resources. So even though we had all of these ideas, we were kind of frequently revisiting like, okay, this sounds really cool. Like for instance, we talked about the adding a live stream. That sounds really neat, but we probably will not have enough time to do that. So we were constantly updating like a priority, first priority, second priority, and nice to have list, and kind of checking in pretty frequently on how we're doing. And then so yeah, we were very mindful of those limitations.